Hello everyone, it's Budanovka Boy, and today I'd like to talk about the upcoming battle for Moscow. As you know from my previous videos, the Wagner Group is attempting a coup in Russia. And as part of this, they've sent a force to Moscow with the intent to take over the city. Putin has not responded well to this, building checkpoints at crucial areas within the city and cutting off roads to the city, with roadblocks and possible destruction. Wagner forces intend to approach from these two southern roads, here and here. This is roughly where they've been blocked off last time I was able to check. It is unclear whether Wagner forces have made it past the blocks yet, whether they're being violently contested, or whether they have not reached the areas yet. The primary directions of attack for Wagner, I will draw in green. Putin's forces will be drawn in red. And as you can see, they are here, with the intent of pushing on towards Moscow. This is, well, a bit of a problem for Putin, though he does seem to have had time to prepare Moscow's defenses at least somewhat. From what has been heard, it appears that Prigozhin's main force is in Rostov, possibly waiting for a meeting to negotiate with Russian generals, while Putin's forces in Moscow are being attacked by a small force of a few thousand of Prigozhin's best troops, intending to capture the capital and end this coup quickly. It is not clear how much time Putin has to prepare. One of his main measures was large road closures in a direct path going from Rostov, the main area that Wagner troops have seized, to Voronezh, to Moscow. Nearly all the roads along that route have been closed. Putin is expecting a Wagner attack from the two southern approaches. Theoretically, it might be possible to maneuver around, such as to attack here, 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 or theoretically from any direction in the city, but that would take valuable time, giving Putin more ability to muster forces, and as it stands, the more time Putin has, the more force he can bring into Moscow, and the better a chance he has at winning, as well as the better his defenses will be built up. Unfortunately for Putin, though, there may be a wild card. The 217th Airborne Guards Regiment. It has apparently gone over to the side of Wagner, and the question is where it is and what it's capable of doing. As of this June, it was in the Battle of Bakhmut along with the majority of Wagner Group forces. This means it has two possible outcomes. One, it moved with the Wagner forces from the beginning and participated in their coup. Two, it has been withdrawn from Bakhmut previous to that. The odds of it joining the coup after Wagner left Bakhmut, while it was still in Bakhmut, are somewhat low, as such a decision would be suicidal, given the presence of other Russian forces who are hostile to Wagner given their attempted coup. So, declaring one's loyalty to a coup plotter in the midst of Russian in the midst of Russian coups, possibly, is not exactly the best idea when you're surrounded by forces to the existing government. If it is with the main body of Wagner Group forces, it is unknown if it is participating on the assault in Moscow from one of these directions, or whether it is with the main defensive body of Wagner forces in Rostov. There is possibilities that it has been withdrawn to somewhere else within Russia or Ukraine. In any case, if it is in Ukrainian territory, it probably does not have any hope to enter Moscow, besides the conventional Wagner routes, which, in that case, it would act just as reinforcements. The regiment is officially based in Ivanovo, though, to the northeast of Moscow, so if it had withdrawn there to regroup, rearm, and reinforce, which is unlikely, we could see a possible airborne attack, which will be see a possible attack by the airborne regiment, which will be denoted in darker green from this northern direction. It had earlier been attacked, but placed in Belarus, which might mean possible attacks from here. However, it has most definitely been moved since then. And remember, this attack vector for the airborne is only possible if it's in Ivanovo, its base, whereas it most likely is somewhere in Ukraine, and thus is either in Rostov and irrelevant to the Battle of Moscow, or it is in one of these few places. Wagner's forces do seem to be moving along the main highways and roads, though there is a possibility of them using smaller roads to outflank Russian troops. However, given that smaller roads are much easier to block, destroy, and less friendly to large motorized or mechanized convoys, it will almost certainly stay on the major highways for now. What is a scary possibility is that the airborne forces have managed to obtain enough helicopters to attempt an actual attack on Moscow airborne-wise. It is only a regiment with a few thousand troops, and it's quite possible only a small amount of that can be airlifted in. Then again, it is possible that they may try to make a repeat of the Battle of Kiev in their attempts at a Battle of Moscow, with attempts to seize a Russian airfield up north from Moscow, but nearby, using forces deployed by helicopter, followed by flying in more forces with aircraft, which would make room for a possible semi-airborne assault from here. This is still very unlikely, as probably the 217th, if it is really defected to Wagner, and if it is really participating in the march on Moscow, and not going with them in Rostov, which is completely unknown, it is quite possibly not maintained or acquired enough aircraft to be a substantial difference, pilots to move them, or airfields to fly them from. However, if it can obtain aircraft, it certainly could make a major difference in the assault on Moscow. Putin has made some efforts to fortify critical locations within the city, such as the Duma, and will almost certainly be constructing more efforts and more roadblocks as the route goes on. However, it is still quite possible that the roadblocks will eventually be forced through, and Wagner forces actually reach and contest Moscow. Given the proximity of the main routes of attack to each other, and the time Putin has to prepare, it is quite possible he will be able to get a significantly large enough military force, marked in red here, to prevent Wagner from going any further. Then again, if pro-Wagner forces are able to rise up in Moscow, or if there turn out to be some from an unexpected direction, it is quite possible that the city's defenses might be taken by surprise, forcing the forces to withdraw deeper into Moscow, where there is a shorter front line, and it is easier to cover defense. So yes, it's quite possible that Putin will end up having to retreat deeper into Moscow if there are attacks from other directions, taking defenses by surprise. And given his fortification of critical buildings, it is likely that there are possibilities for uprisings, or that there could be forces which will actually contest Moscow. This indicates that the roadblocks are intended as a measure to buy time and allow for more Russian forces to be moved in from pretty much any of the many possible directions. Possibly even flown in through the Kiev airport, which is in close enough proximity to Moscow that troops flown into there could reach Moscow in time to be of some use, and is also, given Putin's access to air force and his maintaining of loyalty there, an actually reachable goal. This is especially likely given that Putin has been able to shut down Wagner offices in St. Petersburg and occupy them with soldiers, which provides hopes of reinforcements coming to Moscow from that direction. Putin's power base seems to be holding secure, though. He will definitely be able to fortify Moscow in many major places, and definitely contest the city from any attacks. Though, if it is flanked, or some attempts are made on it from other sides than Wagner's southern route, it is quite possible that Russian forces could be forced to withdraw deeper into the city from Wagner's troops. In Rostov, though, where the majority of Prigozhin's forces are based, he does not seem to have sent many of the troops to Moscow, instead preferring to wait, secure the area, for a possible negotiation with the Russian Ministry of Defense and generals. Unfortunately for him, this means that Putin will have more time to block the roads and prevent reinforcements from Rostov, unless they could theoretically arrive by air, which is unlikely again, given Putin's control over the air forces, and Prigozhin's lack of it. However, if Prigozhin can obtain any aircraft and people to fly them, given the horrible state of Russian air defense, it is quite possible that he might be able to try something. Whether it will be able to do anything of consequence is another matter. Kasyadrov's Chechen forces have moved towards Putin's power base in Rostov. However, it is probably not a method of supporting Prigozhin, but a method of attacking in favor of Putin to force Wagner Group forces out of Rostov, their main base. Prigozhin might well be planning for a long war or peaceful negotiations, which is why he seems to be intending to fortify most of his forces in Rostov and actually build up control in his own logistics. This is also an explanation for why he only sent a few thousand of his best troops to fight the coup in Moscow, though maybe he viewed that the reason why he only sent his best was so either overwhelming troops would not cause uprisings or fearful reactions within the Russian people, or that it would clog up the highways too much and slow them down to the point where they wouldn't be able to arrive in time to stage the coup and would end up shelled into oblivion, or given enough time to prepare that it turns into an assault where they are hammered from both sides. Overall, the outcome of the battle largely depends on how much force Putin has in Moscow, whether Putin is able to cut off Wagner's routes of escape, possibly sending in forces to attack through the very routes Wagner came in through, thus trapping them between the hammer of Putin's forces and the anvil of Moscow. On the other hand, if Moscow has not been sufficiently prepared or fortified, or if Wagner can get troops into the place from an unplanned angle, it is quite possible that Putin's forces could be forced to withdraw deep into Moscow, or retreat from the city altogether, due to defenses being compromised from somewhere else. It is a matter of how much reinforcements Putin can get into the city, and when he can get them into the city. In either case, Prigozhin's dream of a quick coup has probably failed. Probably. Goodbye, everyone. This is Budinovka Boy. See you all next time. Slava Ukraini! Here I am, Slava!